All right, we're live. We'll just be waiting for some folks to join in. Hi, hello, Antonio, Julianne. Thank you for joining. I'm going to put on some music while people are jumping in. A little bit of background music. Hi, everybody. Hi, Austin, Brenda, Casey, Connie, Emilio, Emma, Frank, Maggie, Nadine, Shira. Thank you all for joining me today. As people are joining into the webinar, I just want to orient you to a couple of different features that we have on our Zoom webinar, if you're not already familiar. So if you scroll over to, if you're on your computer, scroll over to the bottom of the screen, and you should be able to see some different icons on the bottom. So one of them is the chat. You can go ahead and type something in the chat, introduce yourself, let us know where you are tuning in from. You'll also see that there's a Q&A box. So the Q&A, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can ask a question there, and then once I'm able to, I'll get to the question, either type in the response or share it. Awesome. Indianapolis, Long Beach, Albuquerque, awesome. Kansas, Santa Clarita, great. Glad to have lots of people coming in from many different parts. New Jersey, Pittsburgh, Charlotte, Canada, awesome. Ohio, wonderful. Great. We'll just wait maybe one more minute for people to join in. And the beginning of this presentation is going to be a little bit interactive. And although I can't see you on the other side, I hope you can participate and engage in a little bit of music making with me. Creating music together actually helps to increase the connections in our brain, releases all these good hormones in our body, dopamine, serotonin, that make us feel more energized and happy. So we want to start off this presentation today feeling excited and ready to go. Wonderful. All right, everybody. So my name is Annela Flores. I'm a music therapist here in San Diego, California, working with MusicWorks. And I'm probably the person that's been sending all of you emails about this awesome virtual conference that we're having. So I'm the Music Therapy and Wellness Hub Director. So doing lots of our continuing education stuff online. Before I talk more about me, let's make some music. I'm going to share my screen and share some of these lyrics with you. So the lyrics on the left, if you're there at home, you can feel free to join in and sing a call and response. So the words are swagatam, which means welcome, shubha swagatam, atha swagatam, shubha swagatam. Swagatam, shubha swagatam. You try it. Swagatam, shubha swagatam. Atha swagatam, shubha swagatam. Your turn. Atha swagatam, shubha swagatam. Swagatam, shubha swagatam. Swagatam, shubha swagatam. Atha swagatam, shubha swagatam. Atha swagatam, shubha swagatam. Awesome. Although I can't hear you, I hope you're singing along with that part. Ananda mangalam mangalam. Ananda mangalam mangalam. Nitya priya bharata bharatam. Nitya priya bharata bharatam. Satyamira Naranavata Manavata Samata Mamata Sariti Sattamanoragaka Yonivaranahitamata. Let's try Swagatam together. Swagatam Shubha Swagatam Mata Swagatam Shubha Swagatam. Awesome. Well, again, thank you all for joining me for our presentation today. The title of my presentation today is Skill Sharing and Capacity Building Abroad. Again, my name is Annela Flores. I'm a music therapist. I've been a board certified music therapist for about 3.5 years now. I completed my music therapy internship here in San Diego with MusicWorks. And then later I joined on as a full-time staff member. So currently as a staff with MusicWorks, I am one of the co-internship directors and supervise our interns at the adult medical placements. I do a lot of my work with in the hospital, hospice, mostly working with adults. I do some groups with individuals with Parkinson's disease, and a little bit here and there since we're a contracting agency in private practice. So a lot of our work is with many different populations. I am sharing today about my experience as a music therapist and a music educator in India. So my first time traveling to India was in 2013. I was going with a community service trip. We went to India for just a few weeks to do some teacher training, to serve the community. The organization that I've been connected with for a while is called Project India. And Project India is in charge of running a school and a hospital in a rural part of Southeast India in Andhra Pradesh. And the area that we are in is East Godavari district. So we're right on the coast of Southeast India. And it is one of the hottest states in India. It is sweltering hot, especially during the summer. So even though I experienced a lot of new and maybe uncomfortable or different things, it was an incredible experience. I returned again just for another short-term trip in 2016. And then I also, after that, I decided that I wanted to stay in India for a year. So I returned in 2017 and was there for a little bit over a year. So that's just a little bit about me. Let me see if I can view the chat just in case anybody has some comments. My experience in India was really eye-opening. Originally, when I wanted to do this presentation, the proposal that I submitted was talking about some of the music therapy work that I did. And I was going to talk more about the teacher training curriculum and how I worked with some of my colleagues to create a curriculum to train special education teachers on how to integrate music in their classroom. But instead of really talking about all of that like program stuff and, oh, here's the cool stuff that I did, I decided that I wanted to share 3 important lessons that I learned in my time. I invite you to go on a little journey with me. And if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes. Ignite your imagination and allow yourself to go to a place that maybe you've never been before. And with your eyes closed, imagine yourself getting on a plane, traveling to India. This might be a place that is familiar to you. It might be completely foreign. And I ask that you allow yourself to release any preconceived notions or expectations or pictures of what you imagine it to be like. Imagine getting off the plane and picking up all your luggage, getting into the car to head to a small village in rural India. As you drive through the car, you look out the window and you notice a lot of different things that you're seeing. Villages, buildings, all different colors and shapes and sizes. Maybe you notice street vendors. The traffic is really crowded. And driving on the left side of the street, which for us in the US is not something that we're used to. There's motorcyclists driving by. There's cars packed together on these narrow dirt roads. You look out the window on the left and there's a cow staring straight at you, just walking alongside your car. And you look to the right window and there's a person begging for money. As you drive into the village, you get out of the car and all of a sudden a wall of heat and humidity just hits you. You instantly start sweating and maybe you feel sticky. The climate is possibly much different than what you're used to. And you suddenly start to notice the smells. The smells of a foreign place. You can't really distinguish exactly what they're coming from, maybe different spices or food, trash or waste on the side of the street, the smell of jasmine flowers by the vendor. And you hear loud honking and loud music blaring from the speakers of a temple. People are chattering in a language that's completely unfamiliar and foreign to you. And maybe to you, it sounds totally like gibberish. As you walk out of the car, you notice a beautiful green field, rice fields, the brightest green color that you've ever seen, and a forest of coconut trees on the side of the road. In your imagination, what is this place like? You can feel free to open your eyes. And what I described to you is what my experience was as I stepped out of the plane, got into the car, and embarked on this new journey. It was a totally different environment, a different place, different culture, different language. And you know, I expected there to be differences, and I knew that I was going into really something that was unfamiliar to me. But it was different once I experienced it there. Go ahead and share my screen again. So this is just a picture of one of maybe a typical street in a more urban area. You can see there's me, you know, haggling and shopping. I got really good at that, haggling prices down with the street vendors. And so the first lesson that I learned that I wanted to share with you is this: go with the flow. All of these lessons that I want to share with you are things that I feel are relevant to us as music therapists in our professional work and also in our personal lives. When I arrived in India, I had some picture of what I wanted, or a picture of what I wanted to do. I decided to go to India for a year because I wanted to help out with this school. I was going to do some administrative work with the school. I had planned to teach music. This was kindergarten through 10th grade through high school education system. And so I wanted to teach music. I wanted to maybe do some teacher training as well. And then my dream was to really be able to provide some community outreach music therapy services in the village. And honestly, I had no idea what that was going to look like or how I was going to make that happen. In my mind, I had a lot of plans and visions, and I was thinking, oh, well, I know this person, and maybe I can make this happen. But really, it was as much of a surprise to me to figure out how all of that was going to play out. And maybe some of you, if you're a music therapist, if you started your own private practice or started a new program, might experience this thing. You have a vision for what you want to do, but you don't exactly know how to do it or what it's going to look like. So I packed up my instruments, I packed up my bags, and I was ready to go. I was ready to start a new music therapy program and to hopefully make some connections in the community. So I'll tell you a little story about how my music therapy services in the school came to be. I made some connections in the community after being there for a couple of months, and with the help of a lot of my friends there who are locals and who knew some of the teachers in the area. And so I had reached out to a yoga teacher who taught in the schools. I reached out to some people in the community, but nothing ever panned out. It was so frustrating because I really had this desire and this vision to start these programs, but everything seemed to be in my way to actually make it happen. One day I looked on my phone and I had a text, and it says, call this number. This is the number for M. Lakshmi, okay? This is the number for M. Lakshmi with this school for children with special needs. So I called the number, and I had my friend who spoke Telugu, which is the local language there in Andhra Pradesh, to figure out where is this school, can we do music therapy, you know, trying to make that connection. And she was like, okay, yeah, come. We spoke to her over the phone. She says, okay, come on Friday or whatever day it was. So Friday comes, we get in the car, we don't really know what we're going. We only know the village that we're going to. We have no idea the address of the school. And I tried to contact people and it was no luck. So we just decided to go with the flow and get in the car. And once we arrived to that area, we would roll down the window and ask the people in the street, hey, do you know where this Bhavita School is? Do you know where this Bhavita School is? Do you know a school for children with special needs? And, you know, someone pointed us this direction, someone pointed us that direction. And finally we pull over to a corner and my friend gets out of the car to ask this next door shopkeeper, hey, where's the Bhavita School for children with special needs? And he just goes like this and he points to some building, some bare bones building across the street. And there's a woman standing outside on the steps. And I asked her, I'm like, are you M. Lakshmi? She's like, my name is Subha Lakshmi. I was like, oh, great. So nice to meet you. I'm Annela. I spoke with you over the phone. We wanted to have an initial meeting to talk about potential music therapy program. And she looked at me kind of strange, and I figured that there was some sort of language barrier, but she just ushered me inside, and we enter this room full of maybe like 15 children with a lot of different neurodivergent and different physical disabilities as well. There's a physical therapist there working with them. And I'm like, okay, great. I started meeting the children, and the program director, she took me upstairs for some tea, and I had my friend help to translate and describe what is music therapy and what we're trying to do. And by the end of the meeting, she was like, okay, sure, when can you start? And I was like, okay, I'll come this weekend. And so I was so excited. I walked down the stairs, we got in the car, and then I looked over at the sign and it said something different. It didn't say Bhavita School. And I looked to my friend, I told him, this was not the place that we were trying to go. I don't know what this was, but this wasn't the place. But now I have a music therapy service here. So pretty soon we end up going to the local government office for the education director, and he gets on his motorcycle. He takes us to another school just around the corner, really nearby. This is the Bhavita School. Here's M. Lakshmi. And again, there's another classroom. It's an integrated classroom. There's maybe 15 to 20 students there. And I did like a sample music therapy session, and she's told me come back every week. And that's how that happened. And I was providing volunteer music therapy services there, and I didn't really know what it was going to morph into, but I just had to go with the flow. Sometimes for us as music therapists, we get really caught up in our session plans or our program development plans, and we expect things to go a certain way. But you know, a lot of maybe program development that you might experience will just come from, you know, just being in the moment and allowing yourself to be open to opportunities. So the picture that you see here, these are my students at the Bhavita School, and the teachers on both sides. And I loved working with them. They were so sweet and so fun. I'm gonna keep an eye on our chat and the Q&A just in case you all have any comments or questions throughout the presentation. So after doing a couple months of music therapy services in the schools, I had a surprise visit from one of the education directors who comes in, and of course they take all these pictures and stuff for the magazine because it looks really cool. And he talks to me, he said, we want music therapy in all 60 schools in the district. I looked at him and was like, that's not possible. I cannot divide myself to 60 schools all over the district. And I don't have other music therapists in the community to be able to provide these services. So, you know, what to do? That's absolutely crazy, but also exciting that people are interested and excited about music therapy. So because of that, because of just going with the flow, this turned into an entire teacher training curriculum. So you see here in this picture, the big picture on the left, that these are all special education teachers and therapists from all over the district. And what I provided was a training curriculum basically for them to teach them how to integrate music into the classroom for, you know, academic, socialization, for increased engagement in the classroom. And in India, a lot of the style of education is very rote learning and memorization. And for individuals with special needs, like that is not always the most beneficial way of learning for them. And sometimes they need to benefit more from sensory activities and different ways of learning. So this turned into a really cool teacher training, and all of the teachers and the therapists were super engaged, and they were participating in all the activities. Yeah, that's a good question. How did I prepare musically to work with these schools and working with a different culture? So I was lucky to be living in the school, Riverside School with Project India, and I was living there on the campus and working alongside teachers who are local from the area. So every week I would sit down with he was actually a pastor, a local pastor from the area, and he would give me Telugu lessons. I would take children's songs and he would help me translate them into Telugu. Most of the time I was working with children in the beginning part of my work here. So just really fun children's songs. I looked up a lot of songs on YouTube. They're like Telugu kids songs. There was a song about different fruits, like bandu, bandu, yeah, miti bandu, learning my alphabets. I think maybe a little bit later at the end, I'll talk about some of my experience observing music therapists who are from India and how they integrated their traditional healing methods and traditional music into music therapy. I hope that answers your question. All right. The next lesson I learned is discomfort leads to breakthroughs. So many times I would be put in situations that were totally out of my comfort zone. I think maybe rather than describing it, I will show it to you. That makes me feel stressed out just watching it. This was not a staged situation. This was something real that happened in my classroom in the K through 10 school that I was teaching music at. Oh my gosh. I am not an educator. I had, my training is as a music therapist, and of course, there's a lot of crossovers. But first of all, teaching in the classroom was something pretty new for me, especially in this type of setting. It's an English medium school, so all the students do know English as well as Telugu, and they also learn Hindi as well. And teaching 7th graders who are high energy in a music classroom, in this video, I literally just stood there like, what do I do? I'm pretty sure I yelled at them first, and then I realized just, this is how it is. So teaching was a little bit out of my comfort zone, especially these grades. The 5th through 7th grade was a pretty new territory for me. I had some classrooms where there were like 60 first graders in the classroom. And oh my goodness, I don't know how teachers do it. You are all amazing. If you're a teacher and if you work in the school setting, that was so challenging for me. But I did have a lot of help from the other teachers that I worked with to help me keep the students in line. I think the kids, they were just excited. They were excited to play and to have fun, especially after having to sit still in all the rest of their classes. Music time was a time for them to just let go and to express and experience. And it took me a long time to really understand what my role was there. It took me almost a whole year to really understand what my role was there as a teacher at Riverside School. Rather than having to manage my classroom in the same way that the other teachers did, I had to refocus on the relationship. And that was a huge breakthrough for me, is after being everything going wrong and totally not what I expected it to be, I just learned, and I just remembered, like, it's all about the connection, all about the relationship with the students. My relationship with the students didn't look the same as the student's relationship with the other teachers. There's a lot of different cultural dynamics, and there was a lot of, you know, they saw me more as like their sister instead of a teacher. And so I had a more challenging time having like the authority, I guess, in the room. But once I leaned into my role, and once I leaned into just allowing myself to be for them what they needed me to be, I had such beautiful connections with the students, and they actually ended up coming to me with, like, you know, problems that they were having, or issues that they wanted to talk about. And in that sense, I was able to use my music therapy skills. Oops, I'll keep going here. Also, really providing music therapy was challenging and different because the students that you see here, most of them didn't speak English, and a lot of them were not verbal anyways. So really, I had to utilize the classroom teachers a lot to help me translate or to help prompt them, to do hand prompting if needed. And this allowed me to reconnect with the music itself as a therapeutic tool. Rather than explaining lots of things or using the words as a way to communicate, this allowed me to return back to music as a tool, music as a way for connection. I wanted to show you a couple other pictures. Whoops. One of my students that I was working with and his mom, he had some difficulty with communicating and some motor limitations as well. But once we did music together, he really lit up. So I'll play this video for you all. Being pushed out of our comfort zone can allow us to ignite creativity and to explore new ways of connection. That was totally my experience. I was able to really, you know, push me to explore things in a new way and figure out different ways of communicating, of connecting. When I had difficulty communicating with the parents what I needed to do, I really had to rely on a lot of modeling, gestures, and utilizing the teachers to help with translation. And of course, there's always that telephone game. It's like, I don't really know if they're translating exactly what I meant for them to say. But amidst all of those challenges, there were some amazing moments that happened. I encourage you as music therapists to think about what are some challenging or uncomfortable situations that you have been through that have turned into a learning moment for you. If you feel comfortable, I'd love to hear about it, and go ahead and share in the chat. What are some uncomfortable or challenging moments that you've experienced in your practice as a music therapist that have led to breakthrough moments? I'm going to take a look at our questions as well. So someone asked a question, what made you choose India and not part of India? Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that, Alex. I didn't really have a moment where I was like, oh, I would love to go to India someday and, you know, go on some journey or whatever. A lot of people have their spiritual journeys to whatever, a different place. That was not really my experience. One day I just got a call from a family friend, and he was like, hey, do you want to come with us to India this year? we're doing this program, we're doing teacher training, we're doing a community outreach program. And I just said yes. So my family friend had a connection with the organization, with Project India, and everything happened to line up together. And that school and that hospital is there in Andhra Pradesh. So I didn't necessarily choose that specific place, but it fell together pretty beautifully. I love this. Maggie says, being an intern during COVID-19 and finding new and creative ways to explore music therapy in these times. Absolutely. My goodness. As an intern supervisor right now, and once COVID started happening, this was a huge, huge challenge for all of us to think about. Okay, all of us probably can relate to this. We're very much pushed out of our comfort zone during this time. What breakthrough moments have you experienced since the stay-home orders have happened? Have you had any cool telehealth sessions? Any personal realizations? Did a service learning program in Cusco, Peru, working in special education. Yeah, music is communication. I totally agree, Austin. Even with limited language skills, I can totally ditto that, Austin. With the limited language skills, using music to communicate. Absolutely. Any other breakthrough moments that you want to share? Breakthrough moments that came out of uncomfortable or challenging situations. I did a combination of preferred music and improvisatory music. So in my sessions at the school, I always started with a movement and a passive proprioceptive squeezing exercise for sensory stimulation with the kiddos. And I used, it was actually an Ed Sheeran song that was turned into a Carnatic version. It was like really, someone posted on YouTube, and my students loved that. We would also use some of the popular Bollywood or Tollywood like movie songs. Yeah. Difficulty transitioning to telehealth. Yeah, I think a lot of us music therapists can relate to that as well. But yeah, going back to Pranathi, like using improvisatory music was a big part of that as well. And often I would start off with preferred music and then adapt that same song and do some more improvisatory exercises. Yeah, absolutely. Well, the third lesson that I learned that I want to share with you today, and this has become my mantra as a music therapist. I tell all of my interns, I have to remind myself of this: less doing, more being. Less doing, more being. It can be an obstacle for us as music therapists especially when we get caught in our session plans, our program plans, and having an idea of a certain way that we want things to go. But I invite you to think about how when we let go of some of the plans, it's good to be prepared. Definitely it's good to be prepared. You gotta have your rep, you gotta have your intervention ideas for sure. But let's not hold on too tightly to that. Imagine what can happen if we're fully present in the moment with our clients, and what type of new breakthroughs and experiences we can have then. All right, let me go to my next. This is something that was shared on music therapy memes on Instagram. Can anyone else relate to this? Give me like a thumbs up or an exclamation point in the chat. Me trying to encourage my client to improvise. We're trying to hold down the melody and accompaniment, make eye contact, and read the music. We're always doing so many things at the same time. And it sometimes feels like as a music therapist, we need to grow 2 more arms to be managing all the stuff that needs to happen in a music therapy session. We're constantly doing, especially if you're a music therapist who works with multiple populations and settings. We might be driving around a lot. We're working with so many different clients and patients, and we're always doing. Even during the session, when you're with a client or a patient, notice your thought process. Are you thinking about the next intervention that you're going to do? Are you thinking about, oh, what song am I going to play next? Are you thinking about, oh, this is not going as planned? What happens when you can allow yourself to just be present? I want to share a story about this girl wearing the headphones. So this girl is named Sarita, and she's hard of hearing. She's considered deaf, and I think she might have a little bit of hearing. So with the headphones, the speech therapist there over on the left, he's working on her and this other student next to her on exercises, speech exercises. He's showing her a picture and prompting her to say the name, to speak the name of the picture. So maybe fruits, apple, pineapple, banana, and doing a lot of that repetition and helping her to feel it in her mouth. The first time I saw this student, I really noticed and took note of her disposition. She was sitting kind of in the corner with her shoulders hunched over, her eyes down, and she was always afraid of saying or doing something wrong. And I could tell that she was very timid and very shy, and she didn't know if what she was saying was correct. She wasn't getting so much reinforcement from her teachers. And because of this, she was pretty isolated. She didn't have too many friends. Well, I noticed this, and during our music therapy groups, we had the whole class participating in interactive music making, singing preferred songs, engaging in active music making, improvisation, also some speech and rhythm exercises. And I had this big buffalo drum that I would pass around to each student to give them a solo so they could have a sense of leading and independence. I noticed that whenever I handed the drum to Sarita, that she completely lit up. She would bang away on the drum. She was happy. She was following the rhythm of the music, and we would do exercises where one person would hold the drum and then one person would hold the mallet, and they would get to play together. And so every time we did that kind of exercise, she was completely engaged, and it was almost like she was a new person. When I first started working with her, I was really focusing on, okay, we're going to work on speech goals, because that's what the speech therapist is working on with her, because we want to help her be able to have different ways of communication. And then I realized that she didn't have an incentive to communicate because she didn't have relationships with other students. Through the active music making, she was able to engage with music, engage with her peers, and she had an incentive and a motivation to share something and to communicate something. So Sarita ended up making friends with this other sweet student. They absolutely loved music therapy. And you can see they drew a little guitar on their chalkboard. And after working with her for many months, I saw her light up, and these two became best friends. They would dance together, they would play together, they would draw together, and they didn't communicate verbally that much, but they had this special bond. And I'm gonna play this awesome video of these two dancing together. What you meant, look at what just a short little video, but you can see her face totally lighting up and how excited and engaged she was. I'm going to take a look at some of the questions that we have over here. So the question is, what would you say is a sufficient amount of time to integrate into a new community and establish music therapy programming? This is a hard question to answer, and I would say this comes back to my point of going with the flow, less doing and more being. There's no formula for developing a music therapy program, especially an international music therapy program. And I think something to be aware of, especially with international outreach, is just the historical dynamics of foreigners coming in to provide services or programming. There's not a timeline that I would say. At first, I was like really anxious and tense and like eager and excited to like get started. And I just had to lean into the moment and experience life there. I just had to experience life there, and the opportunities came to me and they opened up as I was allowing myself to be more present. So I discovered that the less program plans that I had, the less focus that I was on a certain timeline, the more opportunities came up. I hope that answers your question. The instruments, I just brought myself. I purchased myself. The school did have some instruments that I used, like there was a keyboard that was already there and a couple guitars. But a lot of it was just things that I provide and instruments that I still have to this day. Go with the flow. Discomfort leads to breakthrough. Less doing, more being. Being present in the moment can allow us to have really cool and exciting experiences. There's so much more that I want to share with you all about my experience in India. So I'm just going to give you a couple more little highlights. I brought a team of music therapy students from the US. They came and met me in India for a couple weeks. And part of going with the flow is that I had created, as part of my internship, I created a whole program plan for this like outreach program that we were going to do. I could even show you all the files of the schedule, the itinerary, the plans, the curriculum that I had for this program, bringing these students to India. And none of that mattered in the moment. I got a call and I connected with the person that you see on the left picture in the middle. This is Dr. Sumati Sundar, and she's the program director of the Mahatma Gandhi, the music therapy program at Mahatma Gandhi Medical College in Pondicherry. And she's an amazing music therapist and researcher, and she really talks a lot about integrating traditional music, traditional Indian healing methods and music with evidence-based clinical practice. And I encourage you, I think on Saturday the 9th, one of our sessions, her PhD student, Boona, is going to be doing a presentation here for our virtual conference. So I encourage you to also sign up for that session. She'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like, that program. And I ended up taking all of these students down to Pondicherry. We got on a 15-hour train ride and we stayed there for a couple of days, and we got to experience observing music therapy in the hospital setting using traditional Indian music. They base a lot of their interventions in Ayurveda, which is an ancient healing system in India, holistic healing system. And all of us there wearing our saris, which I usually ended up wearing every day as a teacher in the school. So I have a whole box full of saris. This is one of the individuals that I worked with at an older adult facility. And again, I would have never met her if I hadn't just taken the plunge of trying something new without a plan, without really knowing what I was doing. I wonder if a lot of you can relate to the imposter syndrome of feeling like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm equipped enough. I don't know if I'm educated enough. I don't know if I'm whatever enough to do what I'm expected to do or to do what I want to do. But just get over it. You know, you have the knowledge, you're the expert as a music therapist. You have value to be able to provide to the programs and the clients that you're working with. Well, I'd like to leave some time now for more questions. Yeah, so I see a question here. How did the language barrier affect interaction in music therapy sessions? How did improvisatory music making work with children with special needs and or less knowledge of English? Yeah, that's a great question. Language barrier affected, especially if I was trying to give some verbal prompts, like I play and then you play. So I had to learn some different phrases in Telugu. I had someone help me learn Telugu, and I had a little book with basic phrases of directions, prompts, questions that I could ask to just give me a little bit of help as I was interacting with the students. But I mean, a lot of the interaction was music and nonverbal. With the improvisatory music making, a lot of it was just about finding which instruments and which tools worked for which students. Like Sarita, I knew that she loved the buffalo drum, so I would accompany on guitar or we would use recorded music, and I would have everyone play together and they would stop. So I learned how to say play and stop, and that way they were able to interact with the music making. Yeah, the music barriers coming from a Western music background and Indian music is quite different. Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the challenges and the kind of things I thought, oh, like my imposter syndrome, like, oh, I'm not really able to do music therapy because I don't know all the traditional music. I just had to find stuff that worked with my clients where I was still able to be authentic and that I was not really appropriating any music, so to speak. You know, me trying to sing like a classical Carnatic piece for my older adult group, you know, I don't have the training in that, so I was not able to provide that. But I did provide things that I had knowledge of and that they were interacting with. And something to consider is, you know, they wouldn't have had these programs, they wouldn't have had these kind of music interactions. So it was a two-way exchange, I think. Other questions? Questions, comments? Yeah, during an internship audition, the interviewer asked me something along the lines of, why go abroad if there are people in your community that need help? That's a good question. I think each person has their own calling. Each person has their own vocation that they feel strongly passionate about. For some people, it might be a certain population. You know, I know that I'm really passionate about working in the medical setting. I connect, you know, a lot with the adults that I work with in mental health settings. And for this program in India, it was something that kind of fell in my lap, and then I just absolutely fell in love with the community And I had these deep connections with the teachers at the school, and I knew that I wanted to come back. So it's not that I was, ignoring my local community, but I just felt like I had a special calling, a special opportunity to be a part of that. So I invite you as music therapists to explore what are the areas that you feel that you're being called to. Is it a certain population, a certain community, a certain approach to music therapy as well, philosophy or theoretical orientation. And it's important for music therapists, and this is just me getting on my soapbox, but I think that it's important for music therapists to discover music therapy in a way that's authentic to them. We have lots and lots of teachers in education, and of course we need to follow our certification domains and our kind of guidelines of what music therapists are supposed to do, but each of you are unique individuals, so discover how music therapy is authentic to you. Internship abroad, especially after studying abroad as an undergraduate, having trouble finding someone. I don't really know too much about internship abroad programs. I know that one of my students who came on the trip, she actually did some clinical work. I think it was maybe a study abroad in Germany. I would just reach out to people in the music therapy community who might have connections. You might have to just do a little bit of digging and ask around, say, hey, do you know anybody who's, doing work or doing education in a certain area? That's probably the best way that I would go about that. Yeah, so this question about music therapy goals for individuals. I did have some data sheets that I was collecting. So I had specific goals for each student, and then I was also looking at overall group goals. And so these were just for my music therapy groups and not for my teaching classroom, but it was a combination of both for sure, because they interact so much. Yes, a chance to learn some of the overlapping practices and ideas with Ayurvedic and salutogenic ideas that you use now. Yeah, so I was able to stay at the end of my experience in India. I moved to Pondicherry for a month and did the observership program at the Mahatma Gandhi Medical College under Dr. Sumati Sundar. And so in that, I observed their music therapy students. They have equivalency, master's, and PhD students there. And I was able to observe them in many different settings, include ICU, procedural support during endoscopy and angiogram as well. And also the Garbha Sanskar, which is an Ayurvedic practice for women who are pregnant. So integrating a lot of those traditional healing methods, I was able to get a perspective about that. Definitely, I hope you can register for Buna's session on salutogenesis and music therapy. Any other questions? Thank you all so much for joining this webinar. I hope that was beneficial for you. And I really encourage all of you to continue attending all of these sessions. The webinars will be recorded and they'll be available for the rest of the year. You can join the Music Therapy and Wellness Hub Community Facebook group to keep in touch and be the kind of first people to know what's going on about our hub programs. And also don't forget about the wellness sessions that we will be having. So on our MusicWorks Facebook page, I just posted a video from Resounding Joy. One of the staff members from Resounding Joy is doing a guitar clinic, keyboard clinic, and drum clinic. And those will be really cool experiences to work on your music therapy, music chops. We'll also be doing Drums Alive live wellness session programs. So hosted by the Drums Alive programs. So just stay connected with us on social media and you'll get all of that good info. All right, everybody, take care and have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much. Thanks all for coming.